Today, we are very blessed to have a young leader in the pro-life movement be our speaker today. John Paul Deddens, a local boy, is the founder and president of Students for Life of Illinois and creator of the Catholic prayer ministry PrayMoreNovenas.com with his wife Annie. John Paul has been featured in publications such as Our Sunday Visitor and has appeared as a guest on various radio programs discussing life issues. In addition to mentoring pro-life college students, he has also served on the board of Illinois Federation for Right to Life. 6 years ago, John Paul felt called to fill a need in the pro-life movement. That need was to reach young people on college campuses with the pro-life message to ensure a pro-life future. His efforts have resulted in the largest and most effective student pro-life network in any state in America. John Paul.
That looks good, thank you. All right, thank you everybody for being here. I just want to start off by saying that I love 40 Days for Life. Woo! Do you love 40 Days for Life? Yes! I love 40 Days for Life because it saves lives. Since it started, it has saved thousands of lives. That's one reason I love 40 Days for Life. Another reason I love 40 Days for Life is that it is a great way for people to get involved in the pro-life movement. It is a great first step. The bar is pretty low, right? You come, you stand, and you pray. It's easy. It's scary sometimes, but it's easy. That's another reason I love 40 Days for Life. It has mobilized hundreds of thousands of people to get actively involved in the pro-life movement. Where many people used to see being pro-life just as going to the ballot box every 2 or 4 years, now they see a way to come out and be actively involved in their community and actually make a real difference. Another reason I love 40 Days for Life is a little more selfish. You see, a few years ago, I started the 40 Days for Life in Champaign, Illinois. And I was the campaign director, and one day I got a call from a reporter on campus. This reporter invited me to do an interview, and so I went and I did the interview. It was a young lady with blonde hair. She's very beautiful. And after the interview, which I must admit I pretty much botched, I was a little distracted. I turned to her and said, "So, tell me about yourself." And the rest is history, because that young reporter is now my wife, Annie Deddens. She's standing over there, I think. So I owe a lot to 40 Days for Life. And I'm really glad that everybody here has been involved in 40 Days for Life. Now, I'm here today because I'm a survivor. I'm here today because I survived abortion. I was born in 1985, and about 29 years ago, my mom was pregnant with her 8th child. She was going through prenatal care, and the doctor did some tests. And those tests came back. The doctor called my mom in and said, "You know, we really think your son might have Down syndrome. And I think you should have an abortion." My mom said, "No, I'm not going to have an abortion. It doesn't matter if there's any problem with the baby. I'm going to love him anyway." The doctor became pushy and insistent. And thanks be to God, my mom excuse me, just standing right here, is a very strong woman. I was a child, you know, she wasn't going to be pushed around. Unfortunately, many women in a similar circumstance, facing similar diagnosis, are not as strong, and they're influenced by the doctors. Nearly 90% of Down syndrome children today are aborted. So I survived. Now you may be saying, well, that's a nice story, that's great. You know, no wonder you're doing pro-life things and you're active and you're leading other people in the pro-life movement. But me, I don't have a story like that. Well, frankly, you do. Particularly if you were born after 1973, but also there were abortions happening before that in this country. If you were in the womb in the United States, you survived. You survived the most dangerous place in America. You survived the most dangerous 9 months of your life. That is, being in the womb. We all survived. And as survivors, we have a particular responsibility. We need to help others survive. We need to help others wake up to the great sin of abortion in our country and to come here. Hey! At least I got some cheers out there, right? Woohoo! I don't know what he said, but yeah. So we survived, and we have a responsibility to help others survive and bring people here to 40 Days for Life to bear witness to what's happening inside. Just take a moment and look at this place. What you see in front of you and behind me is a place of hopelessness. It is a place of despair. There is no hope in that building. No one coming here for their services is coming here with hope. Like in Dante's Inferno, there should be a sign right here. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. For anyone who knows someone who's had an abortion, for anyone who knows somebody who's post-abortive and suffering from that, you know. Women don't come here because they're exercising their right to choose. Women don't come here to be empowered. They come here because they are hopeless. They come here because they are desperate. They come here because they are in need of our help and our love and our compassion. They are in need of our hope. We come here 40 Days for Life and throughout the entire year to bring hope to this hopeless place. We come here to bring light to this dark, dark place. That's why we're here, to bring hope. So even if you're not quite there yet to Sidewalk Council, even if you're not confident enough to reach out to the women going in, if you're standing here and praying, you are bringing a light to the darkness. You are bringing hope to those who have none. So thank you for doing that. I hope you continue to do that throughout this entire year. Even though this 40 days is now over, we need to continue to come here. Maybe not as often for some of you. Some people will continue just as much as they were. We need to continue to come and offer that hope because abortions will continue to be committed. Now, how did I get involved in the pro-life movement? Well, I didn't actually know anything about abortion growing up. It wasn't an issue we really talked about a lot. I didn't know much about it. So it wasn't until I got to college that I learned what abortion was and debated and talked to people. And as I learned about it, I became very convicted. I became very passionate about learning about it. I knew that this was a great injustice. I knew that this was the great social injustice of our time. That millions of people were being killed with the consent of most of our citizens. So I learned about it, but I kept it to myself. I kept it to myself and my close pro-life friends. I didn't do anything with that knowledge. We know from the Bible, faith without works is dead. So I had the faith, I didn't have the works. I was not doing anything. Why? Honestly, I was afraid. I was afraid. I didn't know what to do, and I was scared to do anything. So what happened? Over time, I met this guy named JP. Now JP, his name was actually John Paul with me. Kind of a funny story. My whole life, I knew of two John Pauls, me and the Pope. I go to college, I live in this Catholic dorm, and I get there, my roommate's name is John Paul, guy down the hall's name is John Paul, guy on the next floor name is John Paul. It was kind of an identity crisis. So we worked out a system. My roommate would go by John, I went by John Paul, and this other John Paul went by JP. So JP, he also was convicted about abortion, and he wanted to do something. And so he would go out to the abortion clinic from time to time, and he would invite me out there. And I'd say, no, that's not for me. Oh, I've got to study. I didn't study much in college, but I got to study for this test. I got to write this paper. I came up with excuses. And he kept asking me out to the abortion clinic, and he kept asking me, we got to do something on campus. We had 2 abortions in this tiny town of Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. 2 abortion clinics. The whole town is a college campus, basically. It doubles in size with the size of the school concession. So the people going to these abortion clinics were my peers. That wasn't all that clear to me until finally one day I took JP up on the offer and I went out to the Planned Parenthood on campus. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. The only reason I went is because he invited me and he said he would go. So I went with his invitation and with his accompaniment. I went out there and I stood behind everybody else and I prayed and I watched. Prayed and I watched. Now they did abortions on Friday mornings every week. So we knew the abortions were happening inside. We knew the women coming into the parking lot were going in for abortions, not for anything else. A car pulled into the lot, and a young girl got out of the car and started walking towards the door. There was something different about this girl because she was carrying a book. She was carrying a textbook. She was actually carrying the freshman chemistry textbook. And I recognized it because I was in engineering and all engineers had to take freshman chemistry. And that really made it real. That made it real for me because I knew that this girl could be sitting in any one of my classes. She could be in my major. She could be in my chemistry class. She could be in my physics class. That made it real. But I was still resistant. After that, I was still resistant. JP kept inviting me, persistently and consistently inviting me to do something pro-life on campus. And eventually, I gave in. I ran out of excuses. I gathered some courage and I said, okay, JP, do this. We started a pro-life group on campus and started doing things to reach out on campus. And ultimately, that led me to start Students for Life of Illinois to help other pro-life groups on campus to be more effective, more efficient, and build the pro-life movement even more. Now, it was mentioned in my bio that Students for Life of Illinois is the largest, most effective statewide group in the country. That would not have happened. The students on approximately 30 campuses in Illinois would not have the resource of Students for Life of Illinois if it weren't for JP. If it weren't for JP consistently and persistently inviting me and offering to accompany me to get more involved in the pro-life movement. This brings me to the number one thing I've learned from working with college students. That is, the most powerful thing you can do is make an invitation. Persistently and consistently make an invitation. I don't know how many people are here right now, but did anybody count? 120. 120, okay. I'm not going to make you raise your hand to see if you consistently and persistently invited anybody to this rally or to 40 Days for Life. But if everyone here consistently and insistently and persistently, it's a lot of leaves, invited people out to 40 Days for Life and offered to accompany them, if everyone here did that, we would have 240 people. Now, that would be great. We would fill up these sidewalks. Next year, you know what we could do? Get those people to insistently, persistently, consistently, and any other type of lead you can come up with, get them to invite their friends and accompany them out here. And then how many would we have? Who's doing the math? 480. 480. Okay, that would fill up down the side, right? Okay, so this is basic math, right? This is what we call exponential growth. And really, it requires persistence. It requires courage, and it requires personal outreach. We can't sit around and wait for the government to get their act together. We can't sit around and wait for those 9 people in robes at the Supreme Court to change their mind. We have to do it. And we can't do it alone. We follow the example of Jesus, right? What did he do? Did he do it alone? No. He invited, personally, face-to-face, 12 people to join the apostles. Now, our Lord invited 12. I think each of us can invite 1. Now, I mentioned it personally, and I mentioned accompanying people. This is very important because it's very easy to put out a press release or put up a billboard or something like that and think, oh man, why isn't anybody coming? Why isn't anybody convicted about this like I am? Well, I'll tell you a quick story about how things work on a college campus. I'd invite people to a pro-life event. They say, yeah, I really want to come. That sounds great. Who's going to be there? Their number one concern was, who's going to be there? Am I going to be alone? I'm afraid of being alone out there. Okay? This happened all the time. You know what else happened? I would invite somebody. Joey, come to the pro-life event. You know? After the event, he wasn't there. So I'd say, Joey, where were you? Joey would say, you know, I really wanted to come to that. That speaker sounded amazing. But I didn't know anybody else who was going. I didn't know anyone else who was going. So can, having gotten active and gotten passionate about this, and come out here and done this, we can kind of have a little pride about it. That, oh, everybody should just get it, right? Everybody should get it. But there's more to it than the facts that people are dying here. If the facts were enough to convict, this place would have been gone. So what we need to do is reach out personally and accompany people here to this sidewalk. If we do that, if each of us does that consistently, that's what happened to David B. Wright, one of the founders of 40 Days for Life. That's what happened to me to start Students for Life of Illinois. If we consistently, persistently invite people out here and accompany them, just imagine what they will do. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening and for your time. Continue coming out here until our next 40 Days campaign. Thanks a lot. God bless you all.